In today's video, we have some updated NHL trade talk and rumors to discuss, mainly focusing on the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, the New York Islanders, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll discuss all the latest talk coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have some updated NHL trade talk and rumors here to discuss today. First of all, I want to get started with the Edmonton Oilers and Zack Kassian. Now, a few days ago in my other video discussing this situation, I noted that it was being reported that Zack Kassian basically had requested a trade and that his agent was given permission to seek out a trade with other clubs, and that Peter Chiarelli had been trying to shop him but was unsuccessful, therefore giving Kassian and his agent kind of permission, I guess, to kind of find his own deal or trade should there be one out there, another team that might have interest in taking the forward onto their roster. Now, it has been updated here. Zack Kassian himself, in public interview, has indicated that he has not asked for a trade, and basically all this has come about because his agent had contacted the team after he was a healthy scratch for a few games and not getting enough playing time to their satisfaction, I guess. So, seems like an odd situation. I mean, really, if Zack Kassian claims to be happy in Edmonton, that he wants to stay, hopes to work it out, that he acknowledges that he hadn't been playing the best, which results in a healthy scratch, and he understood the process, whatnot, and that he has no interest in leaving. He has not requested a trade. But it seems really odd to me that why wouldn't he just talk himself to the coach and general manager if that's really a situation that he understood and wasn't unhappy about. It seems kind of unusual for the agent to be getting involved. At that point, you would think, at least without the player kind of, requesting him to do so or work on some deals on the side here for him if the Oilers were having a hard time trading him. Now, I don't think the Oilers would be completely opposed to moving Zack Kassian. I think it's safe to say, based on what he gets paid, with what he's been producing and how he's been playing on the ice, that it's certainly not something that they would be completely opposed to. I do think it would be something, as I mentioned in the other video, it's going to be a bit challenging for them to do. The Oilers would most likely have to retain at least a portion of that salary to make it attractive to another team to take on the offer, or the Oilers would have to take on another contract from another team, of similar type value that maybe that team wasn't happy with. Sometimes we see teams kind of swap, players with contracts that just aren't going well and see if they can give them a fresh start and kind of get things rejuvenated on each side. Not really sure the Oilers would really want to go down that road either. I mentioned they could put him on waivers, but really he's playing a little bit better as of late. But I just don't know long term if the future for Zack Kassian is going to work out well with the Oilers. The whole thing just seems kind of weird to me, but apparently he himself has acknowledged that he has not requested a trade. So therefore, I don't know if a deal here is imminent. Like I said, just because a deal for Zack Kassian is going to prove to be difficult, and apparently he doesn't want out of Edmonton now. Now, another player who's been making some public comments and kind of drawing attention to himself, which he's a little bit famous for, is New York Islanders prospect, I guess we'll still call him here, Josh Hosang. Now, Josh Hosang was a former first-round pick in 2014. He was originally projected leading up to the draft to be a high first-round pick. He comes in here with a lot of talent, a lot of skill, but there was also a lot of reservations about this player due to other, non-tangible things, off-ice issues, attitude, etc., which really caused his stock in the NHL draft in 2014 to slip quite a ways down, and the Islanders ended up grabbing him at number 28. Now, he's a player that most would argue certainly had, good enough talent and skill to be much higher in this draft. It was the other off-ice issues and attitude and things like that that kind of, gave teams a lot of reservations about bringing him to be part of their organization. So he's been with the Islanders now for a few years. His very first day of training camp as a rookie, he showed up late, and the problems just have continued ever since. And now we have a situation where he speaks out to the media, indicating that he feels that he wasn't really given a fair opportunity to make the roster this year, and that the Islanders kind of had their minds made up from the beginning, and just wasn't given fair opportunity. I was like, well, really, if you take a look at Josh Hosang's reputation, you take a look at his, his track record here with the New York Islanders, I think he's kind of asked for it himself. Like, he's a type of player who has lots of skill, but his work ethic's been questioned. His ability to be on time, have good attitude, just the little things you should be able to take for granted have been questioned as well. He's gone down to the American Hockey League to play for their affiliate at the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. He's appeared in 9 games so far. He has yet to score. He has 4 assists, and I believe he's a -8 as well. Part of Josh Hosang's game that's also been criticized before is the defensive side of the puck. his effort level to helping out on the defensive side as well. So certainly not creating any favors for himself. I don't see Lou Lamoriello really tolerating this type of thing a whole lot. I mean, basically the Islanders have indicated that they feel that Ho-Sang just hasn't earned the opportunity. This is quite simple. They didn't have any preconceived notions about this player. He came into training camp, had his chance, and just didn't earn it, which is kind of the story of his NHL career so far. I mean, last year he got into 22 games, put up 12 points. Things seem to be progressing in the right direction. I certainly was optimistic that he would, have a better chance at least to make this roster out of training camp. But he's yet to really establish himself after all this time. Now, he's still pretty young. He still has a lot of skill. And, the word around the NHL is that he has the skill. It's just obviously a lot of those other things that existed at draft time are still there. But I can certainly see another team taking a chance on him if the Islanders were willing to give him up for a cheap price tag. I don't see other teams willing to pay a whole lot. I can certainly see Lou Lamoriello not being fond of his remarks here in the media, and certainly maybe trying to ship him here out of town if that's at all possible. But the question will be is what is the price tag going to be for Josh Ho-Sang to get another opportunity with another team? I really don't think that teams would be willing to pay very much. So if they're willing to let him go for, like a mid-round draft pick or a B prospect or something small like that, I could see it happening. But if they're going to insist on a larger price tag for a project like Ho-Sang, I just don't see it happening. And unless he picks up his play and kind of cleans up his attitude, he's not going to get an opportunity with the big club and the Islanders either. So certainly keep your eye on Josh Ho-Sang. We very well might see the end of his tenure with the Islanders here sometime this season if the Islanders can find a taker here for the right price. Now, as I mentioned before in a prior video, the Montreal Canadiens have a bit of an issue with their roster that they're carrying too many forwards, and at some point, something's going to have to give here, and they're likely going to be moving another guy off the roster. Now, we saw not too long ago that one of the solutions to this is they placed Jacob de la Rose on waivers, and he ended up getting claimed, so he's now gone off the roster, but they still have 14 forwards. In the last 4 or 5 games, they've had Nick Delorier come back. Thomas Plekanec is on IR now. So if they get to a situation where they have everybody healthy, they're going to have 15 forwards. And a lot of the players they have in the forward group are not waiver exempt. So to go down to the American Hockey League, they're going to be at risk to lose another forward as well. So I think they would prefer to make a trade. Now, TSN's Frank Saravelli just recently put out his trade bait board. Now that we're basically a full month into the NHL season, Frank Saravelli saying that trade talks have heated up around the league, and there's lots of talk going on. So he has his trade bait board up, and he has Charles Hudon, the Montreal Canadiens, in the top 15 players to keep your eye on. Now, if you take a look at the Habs roster and you take a look at the forward group, I can see Hudon possibly being a guy they would consider moving. Now, another guy to keep your eye on as well is forward Nikita Scherbak, who has yet to play. He's been a healthy scratch, hasn't gotten into any action with the Habs. He was just sent down to the American Hockey League affiliate, which they're calling a conditioning assignment. Basically, that he hasn't had any game action, which is the only way they can put him down there without going through waivers. So he'll go down, play a couple games on a conditioning assignment, and then come back up to the Montreal Canadiens, and they'll see if they can fit him into the lineup. Now, they've had a bit of a rotation through that fourth line. Charles Hudon's got into 8 games so far, played probably the least amongst a lot of the other forwards, so it is certainly a possibility. He might be the odd man out between him and Scherbak, but I think they probably would prefer to hang on to Scherbak a little bit longer. He like Josh Ho-Sang, was a 2014 first-round selection, so I think they like to give him a little bit more time here to develop and see what he's capable of. But could Charles Hudon maybe be the odd man out if the Habs can get their full forward group healthy? According to Frank Saravelli of TSN, he certainly thinks that he would be the most likely forward right now to be traded for the Montreal Canadiens. So, of course, if you're a Habs fan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Leave your comments down below. Should the Habs get to the point where they have all 15 forwards on the roster healthy, who do you think would be the most likely to be the odd man out and a player that they would consider moving? Now, lastly here, I want to touch base on Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, this information, again, comes from Frank Saravelli of TSN and his report here on his updated trade bait board. He's reporting that Sergei Bobrovsky and the Columbus Blue Jackets are absolutely as cold as can be on talks on a new contract, and it looks as though the player and the team both have a lot of frustration right now. Bobrovsky has not played well this year. Korpisalo's been getting more starts, certainly been the better of the two goaltenders for sure. And at this point, I know it's early and it's a smaller sample size, but Korpisalo does appear to be capable of kind of taking the ball here and running with it as a starting goaltender with Columbus. Now, should they go down the trade route, there is a lot of teams, as we know, that could certainly use some help in goal. There's at least 2 or 3 teams right now that are looking at possibly making some changes in the net. Now, of course, Bobrovsky would have to come as a rental. He's a pending UFA. Seems reluctant to sign a contract extension, at least with Columbus. Now, not to say that he wouldn't sign one elsewhere, but again, just to reiterate, when he's been asked about his contract, all he's really ever said publicly is that Columbus is aware of his plans and what he wants to do, and that's all he'll say. So it seems like almost a foregone conclusion here that the long tenure of Bobrovsky being the star goaltender in Columbus is coming to an end, and he very likely is going to be moved. I think it's just a matter of when. Between Bobrovsky and Panarin, it seems as though Columbus is more likely to be patient with Panarin. He's playing well. Obviously, they have a pretty decent team. Feel like they can make the playoffs. Hopefully have a playoff run, get some playoff success. Really for the first time ever in the franchise's history. I'm sure they'd rather do that with Bobrovsky as well. But with the frustration being where it's at, not only with the contract, but with his play, then it's something that we very well likely could see this season. So if you take a look around the NHL and see some teams looking for goaltenders, it certainly would make sense to take a look at Sergei Bobrovsky, at least on a short-term plan here. So we'll see what happens with Bobrovsky, but like I said, based on Saravelli's comments here, things are completely cold between Blue Jackets and Bobrovsky, and it is quite likely at some point here that they hit the tipping point and they move their all-star goaltender. So if Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets is moved, obviously he is a tremendous goaltender with a great pass and a lot of accolades to his name. Which teams do you think would be the most likely that would try to land him for the remainder of the 18-19 season? Now, if you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.